$20.8 billion. That is how much Americans lost to cyber-enabled crime in a single year. And we just crossed a milestone nobody ever wanted to hit. Over 1 million complaints filed in 1 year for the first time ever. If you're a small business owner or an entrepreneur, I need you to stop what you're doing right now, because what I'm about to share with you is something that could literally save your business. So the FBI just dropped their 2025 Internet Crime Complaint Center report, which is also known as the IC3 report. And the numbers are staggering, and I am not using that word lightly. Now here's what makes this relevant to you, specifically small businesses, contractors, consultants, law firms, and marketing agencies. You are directly called out in this report as prime ransomware targets. We're going to dig into exactly what's hitting businesses like yours, what the trends look like year over year, and what the FBI is actually recommending that you do about it. So let's break it down. First, a little context. 2025 marks the IC3's 25th anniversary. When they started in 2000, they were receiving a few thousand complaints per month, but today, they're averaging nearly 3,000 complaints per day. That trajectory is almost hard to comprehend. So let's look at the losses curve, because this is the one that should give every business owner immediate pause. In 2001, it was $17.8 million in losses. In 2015, saw $1 billion in losses. Fast forward to 2022, it's $10.3 billion. 2024 was $16.6 billion. And in 2025, $20.877 billion, which is a 26% jump in just 1 year. Every single year, the line goes up. This isn't a spike, it's sustained acceleration. And if your business doesn't have a basic cybersecurity plan, you're swimming upstream against a very fast current. In other words, you may be up a rather unpleasant creek without a paddle. Let's break down the top crime types, because there's an important distinction. What shows up most in volume versus what's causing the most financial damage. These are two different lists, but both matter for you. Now, the top 5 complaint volume starts off with phishing or spoofing at 191,561 complaints. Extortion is just over 89,000 complaints. Investment fraud is just under 73,000 complaints. Personal data breach is 67,456 complaints. And non-payment or non-delivery scams is 56,478 complaints. The top 5 financial losses include investment scam at a whopping $8.6 billion, business email compromise or BEC attacks at just over $3 billion, tech or customer support scams at $2.1 billion, personal data breach at $1.3 billion, and confidence or romance scams at $929 million. So here's what that tells us. Phishing is the most common attack, but business email compromise is what's bleeding businesses dry. Let me focus on a few of these individually, because they directly affect small business owners and entrepreneurs. So let's start with business email compromise or BEC attacks. This is the number 2 financial loss driver in the entire report at over $3 billion. And here's the thing. This scam specifically targets businesses and entrepreneurs. So here's how it works. A criminal compromises or impersonates an email account, often a CEO or a C-level executive, an attorney, a title company, or maybe a vendor. Then they send convincing instructions to wire money, change payment details, or maybe share credentials, and because the email looks completely legitimate, people typically comply. Often these attacks begin with a compromised account, making them look more legitimate and harder to identify. I've seen this firsthand in my career, and it's easier to fall victim than you may think. I witnessed an incident in the past where someone received an email from an executive in the sales department. Now, the recipient was not in sales in any way, but was in purchasing and shipping and receiving. The request was to purchase gift cards for an employee appreciation event, which was not real, by the way, and wanting to comply with senior management requests, the employee set off to purchase the gift cards. The email did not come from the actual mailbox, but was masquerading as the executive tricking the user to comply. It was not until after the purchase was complete, the employee called the executive to let him know he acquired the cards for him, and that's when he realized he had been duped. These cases and incidents happen every single day. The report actually shared a different case from 2025. A Missouri senior citizen was closing on a real estate purchase. They received what looked like an email from their title company with wire instructions for over $1.3 million. They wired it. The count was fraudulent. Now, the FBI's recovery asset team jumped on this one immediately, initiated their financial fraud kill chain process, and was able to freeze the funds before they disappeared. But here's the unfortunate part. Most victims are just not that lucky. So let's look at some year-over-year trends and see the patterns that are happening. In 2023, the report shows $2.94 billion in BEC losses. 2024 is a little lower at $2.77 billion. 2025 is back on the rise at $3.04 billion. And now AI is making this worse. The report specifically calls out AI-powered BEC attacks. Chatbots writing convincing CEO emails, voice cloning technology used to call employees and request wire transfers, and businesses reported over $30 million in AI-assisted BEC losses in 2025 alone. So what should you do right now? Well, first, you should establish a verbal confirmation policy for any wire transfer request, no matter how legitimate the email looks. You should train your staff to call a known number, not a number that's listed in the email, but call a known number to verify any change in payment instructions. And also, you should enable multi-factor authentication on all business email accounts. Really, you should enable MFA on all business accounts if they're capable. So let's talk ransomware, because this section of the report has some very pointed data for small business owners. In 2025, IC3 received over 3,600 ransomware complaints, with losses exceeding $32 million. And they identified 63 brand new ransomware variants. That's 5 new attack tools every single month. These primarily hit critical sectors like healthcare, manufacturing, and government. But here's a critical call out for small businesses: non-critical sector ransomware. The IC3 received over 1,400 ransomware complaints from businesses outside of critical infrastructure. The top hit industries were legal services, law firms, estate planning, which consisted of 18% of non-critical ransomware, contracting services such as electricians or general contractors, which was 17%, engineering and architectural services at 10%, consulting services, which is project management or marketing, at 7%, and finally non-critical manufacturing such as furniture or building materials at 5%. Basically, if you're a contractor, a consultant, a law firm, or really any kind of services business, you're being specifically profiled and targeted. These attackers know that smaller businesses have valuable data, but also have fewer defenses than enterprise companies. Now here's the FBI's top ransomware defense recommendations for small businesses. Maintain encrypted, immutable offline backups, and also test your restore process on a regular basis. Eliminate default passwords on every device and system. Enable multi-factor authentication everywhere, especially email and your VPN. Keep all software, firmware, and operating systems patched and up to date. Segment your network so attackers can't move laterally and hit everything. And also deploy endpoint detection and response, or EDR tools, to monitor for unusual activity. If ransomware hits your business, report it to IC3.gov immediately. Speed matters enormously for fund recovery. Now, this is one of the most important sections of the entire report, and I think it gets some of the least amount of attention. This is also one of the major reasons I started the CyberSmart resource community in the first place. Artificial intelligence is now a documented active tool in cybercrime. The IC3 received over 22,000 AI-related complaints in 2025, with losses exceeding $893 million. Let's look at how this breaks down by scam type. So first, AI in business email compromise. There's AI chatbot generators or writing hyper-convincing emails that sound exactly like your CEO or your attorney. There's voice cloning technology that's being used to call employees and request urgent wire transfers. Businesses reported $30 million in losses here in 2025. There's also AI in investment scams. This is the big one. AI-enabled investment scams accounted for $632 million in losses just in the subset of complaints where victims recognize the AI component. The FBI actually believes the actual number is far higher because most victims don't even realize AI was involved. Scammers are creating deepfake videos of real CEOs and celebrities endorsing fake investment platforms. They're using AI to generate thousands of personalized conversations with potential victims simultaneously. There's AI in employment scams. This one is directly relevant to you if you're hiring remotely. Criminals are using voice deepfakes during job interviews to impersonate candidates. Their goal isn't to get the job, it's to gain access to your company's internal systems. Victims reported almost $13 million in AI-involved employment scam losses in 2025. There's AI in romance and confidence scams, where AI is generating fake social media profiles, fake photos, and scripted conversations to build fake relationships. Victims lost over $19 million to AI-assisted romance scams. What's even more alarming is voice cloning is now being used in grandparent scams, where it's mimicking a grandchild's voice to claim they're in danger. The bottom line on AI threats is if you receive a request for money, credentials, or access, even if it looks legitimate, even if you recognize the voice or face, verify it through a second independent channel before acting. Every time. This should now be a mandatory business practice. The cryptocurrency fraud continues its explosive growth. In 2025, 181,565 complaints, totaling $11.366 billion in losses, which is up 22% from the previous year. The average victim who reported a crypto-related loss lost $62,000. For cryptocurrency investment fraud, 61,559 complaints in 2025, totaling $7.2 billion in losses, which is the single largest subcategory. 48% increase in complaints from 2024. These are the pig butchering scams, sophisticated long-term cons where criminals build a fake relationship, introduce victims to a fake cryptocurrency platform, show them fake gains, and eventually vanish with all deposited funds. They're largely run by organized criminal enterprises out of Southeast Asia, using human trafficking victims as forced labor. Recovery scams, also known as double victimization. This trend is particularly cruel. After someone loses money to a crypto scam, criminals target them again, offering to recover their lost funds. In 2025, 10,516 complaints totaling in $1.4 billion in losses. If someone claims they can get your crypto back for a fee, that is almost always another scam. Now here's some generally good news from the report. The FBI's Operation Level Up proactively identified victims of crypto investment scams and notified them before they lost even more. In 2025 alone, 3,780 victims were notified. 78% of those victims had no idea they were even being scammed. There was $225 million in estimated savings. It stopped the victim from cashing out $750,000 from his 401k and stopped another victim from selling her house to send $500,000 to scammers. The FBI is actively reaching out to potential victims. But the better answer is you never become a victim in the first place. Any investment opportunity that comes to you unsolicited through social media, text, or a dating app should be treated as a scam until proven otherwise. Now, this one is particularly important if you hire remote IT workers or contractors. The report documents a large-scale operation where North Korea dispatched thousands of individuals worldwide to get hired by U.S. businesses as remote IT workers. Their goals are to generate revenue for North Korea's weapons program and use their access to steal proprietary data and conduct cyber attacks on behalf of the DPRK government. Now, what this means for small business owners is you should verify the identity of remote contractors before granting system access. Always use video interviews and require on-screen participation with the ID verification. Make sure you limit new contractor access using the principle of least privilege. Always monitor for unusual data access or exfiltration activity from new hires. And be suspicious if a candidate refuses video calls, has inconsistent technical background, or requests unusual work arrangements. Now, the IC3's Recovery Asset Team, or RAT, exists specifically to help freeze stolen funds if you report fast enough. Now, here are the 2025 numbers for this particular team. They handled 3,900 incidents, and it stopped $1.16 billion in attempted theft. The funds frozen or recovered totaled $679 million with an overall success rate of 58%. A 58% success rate when you report quickly. That's enormous. But the key word is quickly. Now there's a two-step process they recommend if you're victimized. Immediately contact your bank or financial institution and request a recall of the wire transfer. Do not wait. Every hour matters. You should also file a report at IC3.gov with complete transaction details. Even if you think it's too late, file the report anyway. IC3 can sometimes trace and freeze funds through multiple bank hops. The report includes a case where a $6 million wire transfer to a fraudulent account was recalled because IC3 had already flagged that same fraudulent account from a prior complaint. Intelligence sharing in real time works, but only if people report. Now let me call out the most significant year-over-year movements in the data because these trends tell you where the threat is evolving. So here's categories with explosive growth from 2023 to 2025. Government impersonation scams went from 14,190 complaints in 2023 to 32,424 in 2025, which is more than doubled. Phishing or spoofing losses went from $18.7 million to $215.8 million, which is over 10 times in just 2 years. Employment scam losses went up over 400% from $70.2 million to $362.9 million from 2023 to 2025. Investment fraud losses nearly doubled from $4.57 billion to $8.64 billion, and elder fraud losses was up 59% from 2024 alone. Now there's also categories that declined or held steady. For example, phishing complaint volume. In 2023, it was 298,878, but it's down to 191,561 in 2025, which is down in 36% in count, but losses are way up. Swim swap also declining in both count and losses, and overpayment scams are down in count and losses as well. Here's the key insight. There's fewer but more devastating attacks. Criminals are getting more sophisticated and more targeted. Volume may be down in some areas, but losses are way up. That means each individual attack is much more effective. Now the report breaks down data by state, so let me give you some relevant context. For a national overview, the state with the highest complaint count is California with 116,414 complaints. The top state by losses is also California at $3.67 billion. Now, other high-loss states include Texas at $1.82 billion, Florida at $1.59 billion, and New York at $1.22 billion. Now, it's not all bad news. The report documents some significant law enforcement wins worth knowing about, such as where I mentioned the Operation Level Up. FBI proactively identified and notified 3,780 crypto investment scam victims in 2025, saving an estimated $225 million. Over 8,000 total victims notified since the program launched in January of 2024. There's also the Scam Center Strike Force. This is a new multi-agency strike force specifically targeting Southeast Asian crypto investment scam compounds, working directly with the Department of Justice, Secret Service, Treasury, and State Department to pursue the criminal organizations running these operations. Now in 2025, the FBI enabled approximately 175 arrests through 13 joint operations with India's Central Bureau of Investigation targeting tech support and government impersonation call centers. Since 2022, this collaboration has produced 475 arrests. Now at the time of this report's publication, the FBI was engaged in Operation Winter Shield, a guidance initiative helping organizations bolster their digital defenses. This is worth looking up for specific technical guidance. Alright, so let's bring this all together. The 2025 IC3 report tells a very clear story. Cybercrime is not slowing down, it's actually accelerating. The criminals are getting smarter, more organized, and are now using AI to target you more effectively than ever before. But here's what I want you to walk away with today. There are concrete things you can do right now, so let me give you a small business action list. First, enable multi-factor authentication on all business accounts. email, banking, everything. Create a wire transfer verification policy. Any payment request over a certain threshold requires a phone call to a known phone number. Back up your data to an offline or encrypted cloud location and test that the restore actually works. Keep all software patched and up to date. Train your team on phishing by running a simulated phishing test if you can, and you can reach out to us as we have a new offering for phishing simulation training. You should vet remote contractors carefully, especially for any system access. Be extremely skeptical of any unsolicited investment opportunity that comes through your social media or any other messaging. If you get hit, call your bank immediately and file a report at IC3.gov. Speed is everything. Now, if this video gave you value, share it with other business owners who may need to hear this. Drop your questions in the comments, and if you want more resources tailored specifically to small business cybersecurity, head on over to cybersmartresource.com and join our community, or reach out to us at info@cybersmartresource.com to learn more about our phishing simulation platform. Remember to stay smart, stay diligent, and I'll see you on the next one.